Good morning, everyone. My name is Patty O'Neill, Director of Development for the School of Education, and I'm excited to welcome you to today's webinar, Camp Launch, Providing Access to Educational Opportunities for Students of All Backgrounds. The William & Mary Center for Gifted Education began Camp Launch in 2012 with generous grant funding from the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation. Over the last 10 years, the camp has expanded to serve more middle school students and broaden its curriculum, including delivering the program virtually last summer. A generous gift, an investment from alumni Mike and Nancy Petters, is allowing Camp Launch to serve more students and funding new opportunities for campers to learn about marine science through a new collaboration with the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, also known as VIMS. This webinar is one of many virtual engagement events planned today as part of William & Mary's One Tribe, One Day celebration. Every year, the William & Mary community comes together for one incredible day to give back and pay it forward. Every gift to any area, no matter the size, is making a difference and helping unlock challenges that increase the impact of your gift. Today's program is one of the many examples of how philanthropy is supporting partnerships across the university, creating meaningful opportunities for students and faculty, and making an impact beyond the boundaries of the William & Mary campus. A few logistics for this morning's conversation. If you have questions for the panelists, please enter them into the Q&A and we will add them to the discussion at the end of the session. And I also wanted to let you know that today's presentation will be recorded and we will notify registrants once it is available. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Robert Knoepel, Dean of the William & Mary School of Education. Dean Knoepel is in his first year as Dean of the School of Ed, and this is his first One Tribe, One Day celebration. With that, I will turn things over to Dean Knoepel and our panelists.
Thank you, Patty. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be part of One Tribe, One Day because it was William & Mary's sense of community that drew me here. I'm also thrilled to be part of this program today. One of the first initiatives I learned about when I arrived on campus in July was Camp Launch and the impact it's had since its inception in 2012. This program has continued to evolve and grow over the years because of private support, which now includes a new collaboration with VIMS. My colleague, Dean John Wells from VIMS, and his team have been great partners in planning and designing an expanded curriculum for 9th and 10th grade campers that will be introduced this year. This is one of many initiatives across the university that exemplifies a mutually beneficial partnership grounded in community-engaged teaching, research, and service. I'd now like to introduce today's panelists. Dr. Tracy Cross is the Executive Director of the Center for Gifted Education and Professor of Psychology and Gifted Education at the William & Mary School of Education. An internationally renowned scholar in gifted education, Dr. Cross cites Camp Launch as the program he's most proud of in his career. Dr. Cross and Dr. Kim created Camp Launch in 2012. Welcome, Dr. Cross. Next is Dr. Mihan Kim. Dr. Kim is a clinical associate professor in the School of Education and director of pre-collegiate learners at the Center for Gifted Education. She serves as the director of Camp Launch, overseeing all aspects of the program from recruitment, curriculum design and delivery, counselor and teacher hiring, and all other camp logistics. Welcome, Dr. Kim. I'd also like to welcome Lisa Lawrence. Lisa Lawrence is the Marine Education Program Leader for VIMS Marine Advisory Program. Lisa began working in marine education while completing her master's in fisheries at VIMS, and in 1988, then began working full-time as an educator for VMAP. Lisa and her education team specialize in developing marine-related resources for K-12 classrooms and conducting professional development programs with a focus on outdoor investigations for K-12 teachers. Welcome, Lisa. Next is Sarah Nuss. Sarah is the education coordinator for the Chesapeake Bay National Estuarian Research Reserve in Virginia. For the past 16 years, Sarah has led meaningful watershed educational experiences for K-12 students, teachers, and the general public through her work at VIMS, including the VIMS Summer Camp program. She is currently, I'm most excited to share, a doctoral candidate in the William and Mary School of Education. Yay, Sarah, and welcome. And last is Nijay Pope. Nijay is a junior from Franklin, Virginia. He participated in Camp Launch as a 7th and 8th grader during the first 2 years of the Camp Launch program. As a William and Mary student, Nijay is majoring in sociology with a concentration in criminology law society. He's also involved in Students of Hip Hop Legacy and the WM Shore program, which is led by faculty members in the School of Education. So welcome, Nijay. Welcome to our panel. Let's learn about Camp Launch. Dr. Cross, can you share a brief history of Camp Launch for us, please, and also your vision for creating this opportunity for middle school students?
Absolutely. I want to thank Patty for organizing today. We're very excited to share Camp Launch with interested parties. I've been at William and Mary for 12 years now, and when I came with some ideas that I hope to implement. And fortunately, the Center for Gifted Education has a wonderful team of directors, and Dr. Kim being longest standing and certainly a very impressive colleague to have. I had run a number of programs, probably about 20 or so before I came to William and Mary, and I also had evaluated almost 40 schools that dealt with gifted children and programs. So I knew from research what seemed to work better than other things, and had in mind something that was unique and built on the successes of other programs. So a few years ago, well, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, we like to get together at the center and brainstorm and talk about ideas. So I brought up this idea. We targeted this age group very specifically because we know from the research in psychology that middle grades are very important in certain future aspirations of children, and also in building the long-term capacity as successful students. It was important to start early, so we started with rising middle school age children. So Mihan and I and our colleagues mapped out some ideas and basically accepted the architecture that I proposed, but with some really good insights on how to make it viable. So for the past 10 years, we've been offering what we believe to be unique in the US, meaning a program where we try to establish the strongest therapeutic dose, metaphorically speaking, as we can. And that necessarily means that children come to campus, spend as much time on William and Mary's campus as possible. We know that from the research, how important that is. But we're also, in addition to providing specific academic experiences that we have found to be beneficial, like all a STEM-related curriculum for the most part. We also wanted to build a scholar self as the primary sort of concern, really. So everything we've aimed at doing was to help the students get to know each other well, recognize that there are a lot of other young people like themselves who were very interested in academic sorts of things, and build long-term friendships. So coming to campus and living on the campus was a critical component. And so they come for 2 weeks, and then we try to stay involved and connected with them during the summers. Then they come back a second year for 2 weeks. And again, that builds on itself, and the courses become increasingly more rigorous. But the middle school program is primarily an enrichment program. It's meant to broaden the curriculum and to share some experiences that the students wouldn't have otherwise, but from a STEM perspective. Just recently, we were able to expand Camp Launch to include high school component. And we're shifting the emphasis from middle school to high school, and from enrichment to sort of a rigorous academic treatment of specific talent domains, like mathematics, like computational science, and so forth. So it was an opportune time to partner more than we even have in the past with our VIMS friends and colleagues to expand what the children of Camp Launch have exposure to in meaningful ways, meaning marine science and the scientists there and the educators there. So Dr. Kim has done a wonderful job building these relationships with different groups, and we're excited to be working with VIMS this year. Now, along the path, we knew that we were dealing with some things that you might describe sort of euphemistically as a non-level playing field. Many of the students we serve in Camp Launch don't have access to computers at home, the internet, and so forth. So early on, we started providing tablets to the students that gained them basic access, so to speak, and enabled them to do word processing and, in theory, search libraries and read books for free and all sorts of small things. But to get them at least, get them on the playing field. With the high school edition, we now are providing laptops to the students for a variety of reasons, but the obvious ones we'll start with. The academic capacity now goes up quite a bit. Their ability to do searches and interact with scientists and each other increases now with the advent of access to these laptops. Now, I had done a similar thing in Indiana 25 years ago that really proved to be very positive. Not necessarily leveling the playing field, but making, giving the young people a chance to pursue their passions. And so coming to a program, in this case, 4 consecutive years for 2 weeks at a time is something that does not happen around the country. So it's very developmentally planned. The goals are quite specific, knowing quite a bit about this age group that we're working with. We are quite pleased with the long-term effectiveness of Camp Launch. I mean, getting to meet Nijay is a very good example of that. And we're continuing to push the envelope a little bit. I can say that our metaphor of a therapeutic dose has served us well, because things we found over time through evaluation that didn't work very well, we either improved or we jettisoned. And we keep bringing in the very best teachers we can find, and we have some outstanding teachers. And so we're very excited about this opportunity to work with VIMS. And I think the sky's the limit. The funders of Camp Launch could not be more supportive and have enabled us an ability to take what we've learned from research, what we know from professional practice, and to implement it in ways that I believe will provide all the children of Camp Launch many greater opportunities to pursue their passions after high school is possible. And being a part of the School of Education, of course, is something I'm very proud of. And it's something the School of Ed has been very supportive of Camp Launch, as has now the campus of William and Mary. So a lot to look forward to, a lot already to be proud of. And one of the nice things that's happening is these relationships, like with VIMS, are building. Mihan and I are working with additional units on campus now. So it's a very powerful experience from my perspective to have colleagues from throughout campus reach out to us to partner with us in some ways because of the wisdom we've accrued from running Camp Launch, but also Mihan also oversees a half dozen other programs. So her wisdom base is really quite broad and deep. So this is sort of my public welcome to our VIMS colleagues, and I do welcome you, and I'm glad to have this opportunity. So I'll turn it over to Mihan.
Thank you, Dr. Cross. You know, I one of the things that I wanted to sort of reiterate based on what you said is, you know, the thing that's really exciting about Camp Launch is, or one of them is sort of the focus on equity and opportunity. And I know that's a value that you and I share. And I was interested in the use of the word rigor. Really, that's a word that's batted around a lot in education, but rigor is really the application of knowledge, and it's teaching on a higher level. And that's actually what is the conduit to equity, and that's the conduit to opportunity. And so one of the things that I find most compelling about the work that happens in Camp Launch is the use of rigor through instruction to provide opportunity for kids. And so I really applaud you for your commitment to that. And I know from speaking to folks out in our stakeholders and our friends out in the field, they appreciate not just what the students take away from this, but also the opportunity for teachers in the public schools in the Hampton Roads area and in the Commonwealth, indeed, to learn more about how to teach and to embed rigor into their class to create better opportunity for their students. So I thank you for that. Dr. Kim, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the camp for the 7th and 8th graders. What kinds of things do they do in the 2 weeks that they're with us on campus?
I'm sorry, my computer was muted. Sure. First, I would like to talk about the criteria to be in Camp Launch. It is open to public, but we have collaborated with school district to identify qualified 7th graders for a Camp Launch. Then those 7th graders are invited back for following years until they become 10th graders. So students are receiving 4 years of service to complete the Camp Launch program, and we have financial and academic criteria to be in Camp Launch. For financial part, the students' family income may not exceed the 185 percentile income level of the 2020 U.S. poverty guidelines. And then for academic part, the student needs to either provide standardized test scores at 90th percentile or better in at least one of the test subscales, or have a recommendation letter with evidence of performance. When they participate in Camp Launch, we provide 4 main components of the classes. We have a little different schedules for on-campus program, and because of the pandemic, we had a virtual program, but I will share a normal program schedule. During weekdays, students take 3 hours of academic STEM classes, and each day, and engineering, coding, statistics, and 1.5 hours of writing class to support professional communication skills, and 1.5 hour of writing skills classes to support the personal development class to support the identify themselves or social understanding and future orientation toward higher education and the careers. Then students take 1.5 hours of enrichment classes in cultural activities and physical activities such as debate, yoga, art, martial art, music, dance, and so forth. During weekdays, they participate in field trips. Weekends, they participate in the field trips and are focusing on the future conference. And the focusing on the future conference is for both students and parents. Invited speakers for the conference are the professionals in the STEM area, and they intend to provide authentic career information for students, because all the students, they have their assumptions about the certain career path. So we try to provide authentic information for those for students in those career paths, so they can have the actual, the real information, and then the information about the career path. And for parents, we try to provide practical information to support their children, such as academic planning for high schools, how to prepare for college financially, academic resources for their children, and so forth. So we try to provide both the practical and theoretical parts, the information to support our students. In 2020, we implemented high school program. In addition to the middle school program. The 2019 8th graders were invited back to a high school program, and 21 students came back to a high school program. 58 high school students out of 68 previous students committed to be back to Camp Launch. That represents 85% returning rate this year. So it is really, I'm so proud of this, because 85% returning rate is very outstanding one for this population. So I'm really happy about this. And by adding a high school program, Camp Launch intends to serve more students, targeting to have more than 300 campers by 2024 as a whole program. This year, we plan to have about 180 students, including 58 high school students. And then high school program is we try to strengthen the program's impact with more intensive academic experience in STEM area, helping them to get research skills. Because we have a governor's programs, also residential programs for high school students. It is hosted, the VDOE, we work together with the VDOE and then try to identify high ability students in the STEM area. And when I'm hosting and look at the, those resume of those students, our population students is never going to make it because their resume is just outstanding. So we try to help out our students to be compatible or competitive with those students too. So we try to work with them to get research skills to be competitive in that kind of areas. While middle school students take a 3-hour-long STEM class each day, high school students will take 5-hour-long STEM class each day to gain more in-depth knowledge and skills. Also, high school students will have a daily 1-hour wellness class during weekdays. These wellness classes to help them to maintain their well-being through both mental and physical health. And we hope this high school program maintains the connection with Camp Launch and campers beyond the middle school program and allow them to have a peer network. I think peer network is very important to support each other. And we want to expose our students to more advanced STEM curriculum by working with VIMS and other departments in STEM area. Also, we try to promote healthy lifestyle choices through age-appropriate life skills, lessons, and help them to develop their college application preparation knowledge and skills. So I think it is very important to promote them to think about, encourage them to think about high school and their real actual career path in their future. And I'm really confident that we will have another good year with this virtual camp launch this year. Now I'm really praying to have a normal on-campus program next year.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. I mean, it's so thorough, right? I mean, just a very developmental approach to children's needs, their academic skills, social skills, their wellness, life planning and transitions after middle school and high school and post-secondary education through immersive experiences and creating a wonderfully welcoming environment for kids. And I think that your retention rate of 85% speaks to the environment that you've created and the product that you've created. Kids want to be a part of it and they want to come back. They want to continue to be part of it. So thank you so much for that. Lisa and Sarah, so you're the newcomers, our new partners here in Camp Lodge, and we're so excited to be working with you. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the educational programs that you have over at VIMS, and then maybe a little bit about what you've learned there that you hope to apply as our partners in delivering Camp Launch this summer.
Sure. Thank you so much for having us here on the panel for One Tribe, One Day. I'm going to start us off and give a little bit of background to VIMS education, and then Lisa will touch on our plans for Camp Launch. We're very excited to be part of this group, and like Dr. Kim, hoping that next year we can be back in person with all of our students. So at VIMS, we have a lot of different education groups, and our efforts come from different centers and those different groups. I work for the Chesapeake Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve. Lisa works with VIMS Marine Advisory. We have several other groups on campus, and all of our groups, though, are working to translate VIMS research to different stakeholders. And those stakeholders may be students, teachers, the general public, coastal decision makers. And so our programs currently run a very large range from field trips for K-12 classes, a seafood symposium for chefs. We train Virginia Master Naturalists, which is a volunteer organization statewide. We offer teacher professional development. So there's a lot of different things that are going on at VIMS. and a lot of different educators that contribute to those programs. And one of the programs that we have been working on for a while is summer camp. So summer camp, VIMS summer camp has been running for several years. We started off in the early 2000s. When I first arrived at VIMS, we were hosting summer camp 1 week out of the summer with various partners and, small grant opportunities. But in 2009, we had a donor wanted to give back to the local community of Gloucester and Matthews County, which are the two counties surrounding VIMS. And so from that, we started the VIMS summer camp program, and we have been running those for the past 11 years. They are week-long day camps for students. They started off for students in 1st grade through 8th grade. We've since moved them a little bit higher into upper elementary through even a little bit of high school 2 years ago. And the camps focus on habitats, issues affecting the Chesapeake Bay. We even have almost like a field course on the Eastern Shore at our VIMS Eastern Shore Laboratory. We visit laboratories on campus. We have guest speakers come in, all the normal camp activities, games, crafts, but also research projects. And we spend a lot of time in the field doing different types of sampling, learning about different marine careers. And over those 11 years that we've hosted camp, we've had thousands of students that have participated. We typically have about a little bit over 100 students per year. And a lot of those students have returned. So similar to the model that Camp Launch is promoting, which is students are able to come back multiple years and have those longer exposures to STEM or whatever classes they're taking. We have seen a lot of return rate on our students as well. A lot of them become junior counselors and they want to come back and help with the younger students. Some have even become staff at VIMS, which is great. Actually, one of my staff was one of my campers a long time ago. So we have that interest where they really grow their interest in marine science and they're able to pursue a career from some of those experiences. The VIMS summer camps are free for students. So also similar to Camp Launch, we are trying to promote equitable opportunities and experiences for students. That has been a little bit difficult for us. And we have tried different ways, such as we have a partnership with our local Boys and Girls Club for students that maybe their parents are not able to drop them off at 9 o'clock and pick them up at 4 o'clock. And so we've been able to have some students from the Boys and Girls Club participate each year in camp, which has been great. But I think we're really looking forward to having that audience from Camp Launch, and also that we're able to move in the direction that we were already moving in, which is focusing on those middle and high school students that are starting to think about careers and starting to take classes in school that will help them prepare for those careers. And so this is a perfect match for us to continue. And we have some outstanding educators at VIMS that will be serving as our instructors for the marine science component of Camp Launch. And so with that, I will turn it over to Lisa to talk about our plans.
Yeah. Hi. And thanks for having me as well. We are just so excited about this partnership with School of Ed at William and Mary. And this collaboration is great because, we each bring something unique to the partnership. Obviously, VIMS brings that marine science content and expertise, but also an incredible outdoor learning opportunity. So, not only can we teach them about marine science, but we can take them out on the water where they can discover it for themselves. We'll be taking them, when we're not in virtual years, we'll be taking them out on canoes, exploring marshes. If you were able to catch some of the slideshow before the panel began, you saw some of the images from the summer camp, and they're in canoes exploring marshes. We have them wade out into the York River and study the animals there, take water quality measurements. So these are all things that that the main William and Mary campus really didn't have access to bring to the students, but we can bring that to them. But William and Mary is bringing us something that we couldn't do. So that deep, long-term connection to this new audience of underserved community students. As Sarah said, we're trying to bridge that gap for us to make these opportunities available to a broader range of students, but we're making inroads, but not as fast as we had hoped. So having this opportunity with this deep connection that William and Mary already has is wonderful. And also they bring resources on the larger scale that we wouldn't have. So the opportunity for it to be a residential experience for them, and having all those resources, the dormitories, the cafeteria, nurse, counselors, all those things, we wouldn't be able to do that on our smaller VIMS campus. So having that come with William and Mary just makes it a great partnership for us. And we were able to, also in the slideshow that you saw at the beginning, a couple of years ago, there were about a dozen rising ninth graders at Camp Launch that came over and spent half a day with us. And so we took them out in the York River. They were seining with nets. You saw some pictures of that, and dip nets. And for some of them, it was just an incredible brand new experience. A lot of them had never touched a fish before or held a blue crab. And marine science is often something that a lot of schools, and especially those in underserved communities, just don't have that marine science content in their curriculum, and certainly don't have these outdoor experiences for their students. So the fact that we can share that with these students has us so excited. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about how Camp Launch will run it at VIMS. So we'll be hosting the ninth graders and the rising ninth graders and rising 10th graders. We will have all of the rising ninth graders in 1 week segment. So the first week of Camp Launch, we'll have half of the rising ninth graders. And then the second week, we'll have the second half of the rising ninth graders. And our goal with them is obviously giving them that foundation in the marine science content, but introducing them to careers, possible careers in that, and the pathways and the preparation they need to do enable to have those careers. And with the 10th graders, we will have this year virtually, we'll actually have all of the 10th graders, but in future years, we'll get about half of the 10th graders, and we'll have those same 10th graders for the whole 2 weeks. So that long-term dose, like Dr. Cross talks about. And with the 10th graders, we're going to really expand onto that science content, dig deeper, and same with exposure to more marine career possibilities and exposure to research methodologies, and we'll have them do a research project. To help us with all of this, we're going to have graduate students from VIMS serve as assistant instructors. That'll be great because, they are on the cutting edge of research, doing that research themselves. But then they can also be mentors that are close in age to the high school students, and the students can potentially see themselves doing the same work in just a few years. So this year, even though it's virtual, we're going to make it as hands-on as possible. Won't be able to take them out in the field, but we're going to send to their homes hands-on activities, experiment type things that they can do. And then next year, 2022 and beyond, when we can have them on our campus, we will have them in and on the water. We'll have them looking at habitats, looking at the animals, the water quality. The 10th graders will get to spend a week, the second week of the camp, with us over on the Eastern Shore at our laboratory over there, and just really be immersed in marine science for that full week. So we are super excited to have to start this, and we wish it was in person this year, but we're just to make that initial connection this year, and then look forward to having them again the next year.
Yeah, we are super excited about the partnership too. And as you were talking, in my mind I saw the slideshow go, and the young lady holding the blue crab. That's one of the things that really jumped out at me, and I just really smiled. And in the School of Education, we're very interested in mutually beneficial partnerships where we both learn and grow from one another. And I think what you're describing is exactly that kind of partnership. I mean, we're both interested in the same things: applied immersive experiences for kids. We're interested in community engagement. We're interested in creating opportunity for students. And I think that both of y'all's answers really spoke to the resources that we both bring to bear. So the opportunities that our students in Camp Launch will have over in VIMS, we couldn't do here on the campus, but as you noted, there are resources here on campus that you can't provide. So this is a perfect experience for us to grow the program and to advance those shared goals. So I thank you so much, and we are very much looking forward to the in-person thing. But in our planning meeting, I heard all about the delivery of the supplies, so I can't wait to hear about when the kids get their packets for camp. So please keep me up to date on that. For those of you that don't know, this is my 28th year working in education, and the reason I shared that with you is because my favorite part about working in education is students, and seeing who they are and how they grow and how they change. And so with all due respect to our distinguished panel, who are wonderful, I'm excited to hear from our student. I'm excited to hear from him, to hear him talk about his experience at Camp Launch. So Nigel, I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about Camp Launch and how that helped you plan for the future, and maybe let us know also the skills in particular that you found helpful.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dean Knopel, and thank you to each of the panelists for allowing me to be here. It's always an honor to be able to expand on my experiences that I had at Camp Launch, because I feel like I will always owe the program a debt because of what it did for me. Thinking back to those years, is always surreal to imagine of the growth I experienced between those years. I grew up in a small city called Franklin, Virginia, with about 8,000 people. Small high school, seeing the same people every day. And at that age, you don't really know what life has to offer, but it's starting to develop in the back of your mind. And at that time, being identified as gifted, you hear a lot of people assumptions and what they believe the future looks like for you. But stumbling across Camp Launch, I was able to see what my future would be like for me. The biggest thing that Camp Launch offered to me, and I'm pretty sure it offered to everyone who came, that it broadens your perspective of the world, not just in academia, but like the entire world, what it has to offer. Because honestly, before Camp Launch, I couldn't imagine what college would look like. I didn't know how to write an appropriate college essay or how to apply myself in the classroom. But being around people who experienced the same, well, I wouldn't say life circumstance, but come from the same background as me, and working through that together, it provided more than just a sense of the scholar aspect. It allowed you to bond with those students, and that bonding, it promotes a better sense of yourself. And I say that because you learn so much from the other students there. And that's just with being around a group of people like that anyway. I was able to see what skills that they had that I could take that could, help me down the road, or that I really liked in my studying habits, or like writing habits that they had that I found that would be beneficial to me. So Camp Launch, it really broadened my perspective on the world, and it also showed me that anything is possible as long as you work hard. My life, like looking at me now, a lot of people wouldn't understand where I came from, and that's okay. But I say that to say that Camp Launch, it offers so many opportunities that people can't imagine. At that time, it seemed like for the kid, it seemed like it's just a camp. But when you look back on it, you realize how much you learned from that camp. And how it's like interwoven into your daily routines and your habits, and how it promotes into your adult years. A lot of people tell me that I'm such a great student, and I just recommend that. I don't know how. I don't know how to explain the way I do the things that I do. A large part of it, I feel like it comes from Camp Launch. You know, being able to go to this program at this young age, it became second nature almost. There's a lot of things that I do now that I don't think about because it was embedded in Camp Launch. And it goes for a lot of things: my writing habits, my reading habits, my study habits, planning, my morning routine. A lot of things that I just soaked in with the Camp Launch experience, because you never know when you would get another experience like that. I think it's a great thing that the funders are doing and how their investments are helping people, because I also am a huge advocate for equality and seeing programs as such that provides people with limitless opportunities from different backgrounds to be able to reach the same playing field that we were mentioning earlier. I think it's a great deed, and I just feel like I have so much depth to the program. But enough about rambling about that. Some skills and experience. I mean, some skills that I learned from those experiences. I already touched on was writing, of course, research, but the biggest thing is being able to be a good person, I think. Because with the program, the children are immersed into different cultures and different backgrounds with other students, and it just teaches you how to be more appreciative of everything. It teaches you to be considerate of other people, and it also teaches you to just be a good person, because you really see that, you know, you don't have to be there. It could have been another student that was selected, or you could have missed the propaganda that pushed Camp Launch. But it makes you realize that you're there for a reason, and that you should take the most of the opportunity, because you never know when you can get another opportunity or how those skills will come out to help you in the future. Looking back now, at the time I was scared to leave home for Camp Launch. You know, 7th and 8th grade, I wasn't thinking about college just yet, but I'm so happy that I did leave, because a lot of the skills that show up in my everyday schooling, I can attribute to Camp Launch, and I'm so thankful for that.
I don't know that I can do a better job summarizing that, Nigel. I mean, that's just so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I hear you just summarizing so many of the things that we care about: access and opportunity and immersion. I wonder if I could put you on the spot and ask you a different follow-up question, but I'm sort of wondering, did this help bring you to William and Mary? Did the exposure to Camp Launch and the exposure to this campus help not just see college for you in the future, but William and Mary is the place where that was where you wanted to study?
It definitely did. Because of Camp Launch, I remembered the name William and Mary, and I actually considered applying here, because my top choice was UVA, but I remembered the campus and the energy and the people there, and I was like, you know, it's not just about the books or the scholarly aspect of your education. It's a place I'm going to be living for 3 to 4 years if I choose to stay on campus. I will have classmates there. I will interact with the professors there. And it's a place that I want to be able to feel comfortable. And I also want to be able to feel like I can call it my home. And I think that, well, it may sound a little biased, but I think William and Mary is a great place for Camp Launch. It's a great campus. And you just feel all the welcoming energy that William and Mary has to offer.
That's great. No, and I feel that too. And as I said in my opening comments, that's what brought me here. The first time I was on campus, I felt that too, and I knew it was the right place for me. So thank you so much. You really do honor us with your presence, and your what you've shared with us, I think, is incredibly important. So I sort of, I guess maybe to the entire panel, but certainly Dr. Cross, I want to hear from you again. Nijay has shared some powerful testimony about his experience and how that helped him in the future. Can you tell us a little bit more about maybe how Camp Launch is the research that you've conducted? I know you collect a lot of data. What is the research suggesting about the impact that Camp Launch has on student success long-term? We care about impact very much in the School of Education. How do we help students? What's their impact by participation?
Well, we've from day one attempted to gather evaluation data every year, and we've done that for 9 years. Plus, we're trying to follow as many of the students as we can stay in contact with. And with the new addition of the high school and the laptop computers, we believe we'll stay in more regular communication with them throughout the academic year, as well as in between. As a sidebar to your question, but as a means to also address it, one of the important aspects to our curriculum is what I'll describe as the invisible curriculum of academic favor or privilege. And coming from 35 years in gifted education, one of the things I've learned with great confidence is that there are things about what one needs to know and be able to do to be competitive. Mihan mentioned it about our governor school program, but that extends into college applications. And so Mihan has run a program called Focusing on the Future, attempting to get this invisible curriculum and make it available to everybody. So one of the reasons I'm emphasizing that is that's an important part of what we attempt to do every year. And we'll be able to extend that more fully, because knowing about SATs and ACTs and knowing about how many colleges to apply to and what are variables that'll impact you greatly in being admitted or not. The role of having a calculus class under your belt when you apply to certain segment of schools, for example. These are things that, quite frankly, children of privilege know, and they're not even aware they know it. And so even before Camp Launch existed, the Focusing on the Future program has existed for 20 years because we really wanted to make sure that we level the playing field to the fullest extent. And so, in a long-winded way of trying to address your question, Camp Launch was built on a DEI sort of foundation. The idea being that we know certain things to be true. We're going to build this program based on it. And part of the goal is not to necessarily in any way confine the aspirations of the students, but to share more information with them about STEM fields, partly because that was funding that was available to us, but partly too because there are certain groups in our society who are underrepresented professionally in certain groups like marine science and others. And Camp Launch could be a good vehicle for that. And we're seeing that. And a high proportion of Camp Launch children go on to college, a much higher proportion than you would predict based on just purely socioeconomic metrics. So we know we're having some impact, but Nigel is a gentleman and didn't really and did a very nice job giving Camp Launch credit, and I appreciate that. But you're looking at an individual who has the capacity, the tenacity, the focus, the hard work, the passion for all these wonderful qualities, and coming to Camp Launch hopefully was an encouragement and maybe even a catalyst, but it still relied on his hard work and his But one of the things that Mihan and I dissected that we really think we had to attend to, and that's why we pushed for high school, is that for many of the Camp Launch students, their high schools just don't offer courses that are rigorous enough to make them competitive for even the advanced programs like governor schools, but certainly not for certain admissions to colleges and universities. So we're upping that ante so that some of our courses will be significant enough. Lisa's description of that week in the Eastern Shore doing marine science, professional marine science is something that's very difficult to duplicate. And, it's one of the reasons in our early conversations, I was so smitten with that idea. I'm so pleased that they've managed to figure out how to make that work. So that rigor, as you said, Dean, is part of the DEI initiative. It can't be all enrichment. It has to be the point where coming to Camp Launch actually adds to their knowledge base and capacity so that then they can dream, as Freire talks about, dream at the level of knowledge. And so we have data suggesting bits and pieces of all these things. And then we have some pretty good data on going on post-secondary education. And we now, thank goodness, with the funders' support of us, we're increasing the size of our research team from basically 1 or 2 people to several people. And we're working again with our colleagues at VIMS. We'll be gathering data that will be fed into this larger ongoing 10-year window. And so far, it's very promising. And our interviews with Camp Launch kids, I shouldn't say students, Camp Launch students, is heartwarming and very telling. And as sort of Nijay demonstrated today, the capacity to look back several years and talk about the role that it might have played or did play is articulated very well by the students. So I'm optimistic that what Camp Launch has been attempting to do, we've been successful at, and that a lot of children's lives have been improved. And one way they've been improved is a high percentage of them are going on to post-secondary education.
Thank you, Dr. Cross. It looks like we have a question in the Q&A panel. So I'm not sure if I'm sharing, but I'm going to do that anyway since I have the floor. So I wonder if you all could tell us a bit about how did the students respond? How did the kids respond to the virtual camp offered last year? And then as my follow-up, take some of my prerogative here, I really want to hear a little bit about how we're going to try and do these immersive experiences virtually again this year, adding on the work at VIMS. But how did the kids, so question number one, I guess maybe for Dr. Cross and Dr. Kim, how did the kids respond to virtual camp launch offered last year? And then my follow-up to our colleagues at VIMS, please.
Last year, I will talk about a little bit because I experienced the virtual program last year. And last year, we were really concerned about the overburdening our campers about the online classes because all the school programs at the time became an online and nobody was stable at that time. So we tried to really care about that. So we know that students already getting tired of those online classes at their schools. So we reduced the instruction hours so that students don't have to sit with the computers for 6 to 7 hours a day. So, but after last year's experience, it was not that bad than I expected. So we realized it became to think that campers can manage additional academic times than last year. So we increased the academic instruction time for this year. So hopefully they can have more intensive knowledge about an academic experience through the virtual camp. And then also the delivery of materials is a huge job. And then without those materials, it cannot be happen. So actually our coordinators, drop in person, sometimes door to door. So it was a really hard job. And then, but we worked with the school district also to deliver in person while we followed the CDC guidelines, of course. And so this year we are going to the same thing to provide the maximum experience, educational experience for our campers. But this year, we work with the VIMS. So I would like to say, we will work together to make it the effective delivery of materials to our students. So that was the big experience from the last year's virtual program. And then we realized and we spent a lot of time and efforts to assure the accessibility for our campers. And this last year's effort helped a lot to plan for this year. And we had to address the camper privacy concerns. And then while they are on the Zoom and they're at their homes, so we developed detailed guidelines to address these issues. And we learned that we need to train our staff to, adhere to these guidelines. So we will do some training for this too. And then last year, we did not incorporate the social time for engagement because virtual setting is a little different. And that was the first year to happen with the virtual camp. So we planned a little bit of social time, but we quickly became obvious. We need creative ways to keep up, student engagement. So we're planning more social time and motivational plan for this year. Also, the campus engagement in a virtual setting is really different from the in-person program. So we found that we need to support counselors with diverse engagement activities to use their campus, and we'll be providing this year too. So, and then the last thing is the building relationship is really important. It is a key to our success, the building relationship with students and their families. So we try to make families understand that we are partners in their child's education. So we try to take time, we spend a lot of time to make personal connections with each student's family for developing the open lines of communication. So it helped a lot, and we listen to individual families' needs and struggles, what's the hardships or barriers to participate in the virtual camp. So we try to support as much as we can. So I feel like with all this experience and plan, and I think we are ready for this year's camp launch.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Sarah, Lisa, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just add, I think that this past year of virtual teaching for us, I mean, we have not been able to host our normal experiential field experiences for students. We've learned a lot, and we feel like we've gained some skills in order to lead virtual field trips and to make it as interactive and experiential as we can. Of course, it will be different. We've worked really hard to develop some nature outdoor observation activities, and we're still trying to develop some research projects that the students can participate in, especially those 10th graders. And as Dr. Kim said, the ability to drop off materials, albeit we can't drop off microscopes and dissecting tools and all of those things that we normally would use, that is helping a lot. And we're trying to determine what would be most helpful for the students. Right now, we're in the process of figuring out if we can, liability-wise, get permission from parents for students to go outside of their homes during camp launch programming, to do a little bit of the experiential learning in their yard or right there in their neighborhood. So those are some of our plans of how we intend to keep it experiential while we're conducting a virtual program.
I'd like to add something quickly, that as an old researcher, one of the cool things about this time is that we get to find out what the actual outcomes are. In other words, the old adage that people vote with their feet, they're returning to camp launch knowing that it's a second year of being online. It's in spite of the pandemic year of so much of their education being online, they still want to continue with camp launch. And so that's one way in which we're seeing some positive kind of experiences play out. So the center learned a lot this past year because we needed to turn a half dozen programs into online versions of themselves. And some of the things that Mihan just mentioned are actually quite large adaptations that have been made. And I think that, boy, I'm optimistic this year. And I think the things that Sarah's mentioning now, there's the enthusiasm and excitement's just exploding, behind the scenes. And the kids who are going to be ninth graders next year are kind of rubbing their hands together because they know, they'll be back on campus and things are going to be fresh and new. And by the time they get to the 10th grade experience will be unparalleled. And it's, so there's a lot of good excitement around it. And we've adapted, and I want to credit Mihan with incredible capacity to make decisions, always very planful at the early stages, but then also on the fly as we need to, because we did need to make changes along the way.
Yeah, well, I think that might be a good way for us to pivot and to bring a close to the conversation. I just want to thank all the panelists for their participation, and just maybe sort of close by saying, one of the values, I think, in the School of Education certainly is the transformative nature of education. And we seek to transform students, schools, and communities. And we do that through partnerships. We believe very strongly in community engagement as a mechanism to promote equity. And so it's wonderful to have partners in VIMS who share those values with us. And I think, to build on what Dr. Cross said, I can see the students already rubbing their hands together about next year, because the opportunities that they'll have over in VIMS to expand on the already great program is wonderful. So again, I want to thank our panelists. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and learning more about how VIMS and the School of Education are partnering to promote community engaged teaching, research, and service while providing academic experiences in STEM and marine science education to high ability students from financially disadvantaged backgrounds. I also want to thank my colleague, Dr. Wells, who I see, Dean Wells, still in the room with us. We are so grateful for your leadership and your partnership and your service and contribution to William and Mary. Camp Launch would not be possible without the private support. As you think about your One Tribe, One Day participation, we encourage you to consider the broad impact your gift can have by supporting Camp Launch or the VIMS Impact Fund. Tomorrow, you will receive a survey regarding this event. We welcome your feedback to help us to provide the best programming for the William and Mary community. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Have a wonderful day.